Hello, students. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the poetry section. The poem that I have chosen today is Tale of Custard the Dragon, written by Frederick Orrin Nash. Let me give you a small introduction of this poet. Ogden Nash, he was an American poet famous for his light verse. Light verse is the poetry on playful themes for amusement and entertainment. He was known as producer of humorous poetry. This poem is actually a doggerel. Doggerel means a ridiculous poem, which we also call as ballad. Poetry in the form of verse, in the form of the prose, that we call as ballad. Auden Nash received Sarah Josepha Hale Award in 1964. In this poem, the poet he tries to ridicule persons who put up faces of being very brave and courageous, but in times of crisis prove big cowards. On the other hand, those who are unassuming and make no proud professions prove their worth when the occasion demands it. Let me first read out few stanzas of this poem and then I'll try to explain them. Blinda lives in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little grey mouse and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon and a real truly little pet dragon. Now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and the little grey mouse she called him Blink, and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard, but the dragon was a coward, and she called him Custard. Let me first explain the first stanza to you. Blinda lived in a little white house. The poet says, once there was a little girl named Blinda, and she lived in a little white house, and she lived with some creatures who were her pets, and they were black kitten, a little grey mouse, little yellow dog, and a little red wagon, and a creature that the poet says was really and truly a dragon. In this stanza, the poet used some literary devices in this stanza. In the first stanza, first of all, let's have a look on the rhyme scheme of this poem. This stanza, the rhyme scheme of the first stanza is A A B B. The terminal word, that is a house, it sounds alike with the terminal word that comes in the second line, that is mouse, and the terminal word in the third line, wagon, it resembles with the sound in the fourth line, that is dragon. So its rhyme scheme is AABB. In this stanza, the poet has also used another literary device, that is a repetition, and word little has been repeated here. So this poetic device, we call it as repetition. Oxymoron is another poetic device. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two words of contradictory meaning are used to produce an impact. For example, in this stanza, pet dragon has been as oxymoron. Pet dragon. These are the two contradictory words having the contrast meanings. The dragon, we can't keep it pet, we can't tame it, and the pet, it contrasts with this creature, that is a dragon. So the device, we call it as oxymoron. Another poetic device, that is the anaphora. Anaphora is actually repeated use of word at the start of two consecutive lines. For example, and a little, and a really. So this is the example of anaphora. because these two lines, they started with the use of the same word and, so it shows anaphora. A refrain is another poetic device. A refrain is actually a repetition of a sentence, phrase, or even a word, sometimes with slight changes at the end of each stanza. Here refrain is and a really truly. Here it actually stands for really and truly, but to create the musical effect, to create the attractive effect, the poet has changed it with his own for his own amusement, so to get the readers more interested. So here it is, we call it as refrain. Let's come to the second stanza. Now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and a little grey mouse she called him Blink, and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard, but the dragon was a coward and she called him Custard. Mustard, here the mustard is actually a yellow colored flower, and coward, it means weakening, buzdil. In this stanza, the poet actually explains the names of the animals that are tamed by Blinda. He says that the name of the black kitten is Ink. The little grey mouse, she called him Blink. And the little yellow dog had yellow color, so she calls him Mustard. And the dragon that was covered, means that was a weakling, and she called her Custard. So let's come to the literary device. Rhyme scheme is again A, B. Ink, Blink, Mustard, Custard. Here the poet has used another poetic device, that is the simile. Here the dog has been compared to mustard. The color of the dog, it has been compared to mustard. Yellow dog was sharp as mustard. So the word this, it shows the simile. Alliteration is the repetition of the generally the consonant sounds at the beginning of the words. For example, covered, called, custard. So these three words, they start with the same sound, that is a k sound, covered. Anaphora is again used in this stanza, and the little grey and the little yellow. And the repetition is another use of a little word little. So this is enough for today. Thank you.